I mean, on that note, how did you get the funding for the movies you did with Monty Python, The Holy Grail, Life of Brian, and even something like A Fish Called Wanda? Because it seems like those guys behind the desk would have never given you the millions and millions you needed for the high production value on those movies.
I have to tease you about this, Brian, because the millions of millions. I mean, the first film we ever made cost £240,000.
Okay, which movie was that?
That was my Holy Grail. Oh, there was one before that that cost £100,000. I mean, my Holy Grail cost £140,000, I think it was. And then Life of Brian cost £2 million, Brian. Can you believe that?
Wow.
And not a single English or Hollywood studio would back it. Life of Brian recently voted best British comedy of all time. I don't take those things very seriously, but it does mean it's up there with the best. And we couldn't get £2 million from anyone in England or $3 million from anyone in the United States. So we made it eventually because that marvelous man, George Harrison, put the money up for it because he was a creative and he could see what it was about. But once you had experiences like that, you just realize the people in charge, they haven't a fucking clue.
So you had to find some independent financing and you were going to make it happen. That was it. Where there was a will, there was a way. You were all highly motivated.
Brian, that's a nice way of putting it, but actually we'd given up, and it was only because Eric Idle was a good friend of George Harrison, and he gave George the script, and George read it. He says he fell out of bed. I don't know, that's apocryphal. And he rang Eric up and said, I'm putting the money up. And Eric said, what are you talking about? And George said, I'll put the money up for the film. Why? He said, I want to see it. Isn't that the most wonderful story? You could see the possibilities in it, you see. I mean, when we went in to the BBC to sell Monty Python, it's an extraordinary story. But they heard we wanted to do a series together. We'd never worked together before, though we'd all been on the writer's table for David Frost. We knew each other. And when we went in, he said, well, what are you guys proposing to do if I give you a comedy series? And we couldn't answer because we hadn't discussed it. Can you believe that? A pitch meeting in which the writers have just discussed what they're going to do. And he asked us questions like guest star and whether there'd be music. And in the end, he just looked at us and shrugged and said, go away and make 13 programs. And I believe that it was because we didn't have a concept that we were able to go out there and explore with no limitations at all, without any parameters about what we were going to do. And that's why it was, I believe, a very original series.
Wow.
But again, 99% of the time would not get picked up. And particularly, last about 4 years ago, the guy in charge of BBC Comedy said he wouldn't have commissioned it because they were 4 white guys.